The school that I was in, it was in a village in Wales called Brumwell, and it was a very, very rough school. It wasn't so much that I was picked on by people in my class. It was normally in the class above them or the class above them again. And it was usually sort of 2 or 3 of them that used to pick on me and hit, because they used to say, well, who's the best fighter in your class? And the lads used to say it was me, and then they come and say, oh, you think you're a good fighter, and then they start sort of picking on me and that. So I mean, fighting was just part of my life really, and I was forced to fight or just, you know, give in sort of thing. So it's against my nature, so I used to fight. My brother actually told me that there's somebody else called Bruce Lee, and I never heard of him at the time. I think when I actually did hear him, he'd already died by then anyway. And I went to, when I was in college, I went to see a Bruce Lee film then, and I was amazed, you know, mainly by his speed and his body and this sort of thing, and I thought he probably knows a few moves as well. And I spent the next 14, 15 years trying to master them. When I was doing the modified, I was on the stick in hand at Cheesetown, and I was on it for probably about 6, 7 years, just the stick in hand, without learning anything outside of the stick in hand. This taught me that by practicing a set amount of moves, whether it's sort of 5 or 6 or whatever the amount is, through such a long period of time, that you break away from the moves, even though that your base is on them. From the traditional, the forms that you learn, the Sealam Tao and Chamkil and Wooden Dami and Dyoji, have got direct application to an opponent. Now that's lacking in the modified. With the fights that I used to have before, the straight fights, that's where I learned the true meaning of the emotions involved in a street fight confrontation or whatever the situation. And it's these emotions that no one's taught. You're not even, no one's actually said to you, okay, it's all right to be scared, or it's okay, you know, to have fear in the body, or whatever. There's no one actually explaining what you're going to experience and how to relate to it. I mean, if you're scared in the middle of a fight, most people have a standoffish thing that, you know, they're scared and, you know, they back away from it. And then the whole system that they've learnt freezes. It doesn't work. It's like someone being in the middle of a road and a car comes along. They look at the car, they freeze, and then they get knocked down. Whereas if they were more in control of the situation, more in control of their body, well then when they say they're going to jump out the way. So this is the same principle for martial arts. People learn a martial art, and it's like being thrown in the deep end. They suddenly get into a real fight and they freeze. They can't use, they're scared, they don't think they should be scared, and they're too worried about probably what their mates are thinking, whether or not, you know, they're making a good performance because they know martial arts and they're supposed to be something super. They can't get on with the fight. They're too bothered about the impression they're making instead of actually getting on with the fight. So what I've done, as I said, is through the street fights that I used to have, was I got to come to terms with the emotions. So with fear, instead of trying to repulse fear, I was actually encouraging fear to be in the body. When you actually get used to being scared, and once you're used to it, the fear of being scared goes, and there's no fear there anymore. Or it's there, but you probably don't notice it. It's just an emotion that goes through the body. It's confidence, really. If you've got your confidence level there, and you've got your skill to back it up, and you've got your control of your emotions and your strategy, and you've practiced hard enough, obviously, so it's actually part of you, then the attitude of my self-defense is really positive on myself. It doesn't come into it. It's a reflex action. The whole thing has to be a reflex action. I mustn't think in a fight, no more than I think I must hit this person. I might think of, in a fight situation, as the thought breaks through your concentration maybe, especially in the early days. I might think, I'm going to punch this person as he comes in range, but I've already kicked him. It's a reflex action. The mind, when the fighting actually commences, the mind must be blank, but it mustn't be forced to be blank. It must be blank through an actual way of training. So. From when I was younger, I did actually come to terms with pain and fear and the rest of it, and I found that then I would be very easily provoked into a fight situation, whereas now, sort of Derek Jones, the master, I'm more standoffish with fighting. I don't tend to get involved now. The need for having to prove myself has actually gone. and from that I'm a more contented person and at peace with the world, as long as the world remains at peace with me.